Hey guys, welcome to the Together for Good podcast, your guide into the real and inspired marriage and life adventure that you never knew was possible. I'm Meredith Osterhaus, the daughter of your hosts, Dan and Melodie Grootman. Mom and Dad's teaching, stories, and experiences with lots of laughing mixed in will move you to make your marriage last, all while making a difference in the world around you. Are you ready? Here we go!
Hey everyone, welcome to Together for Good. I'm Dan.
Hi, I'm Melodie.
And we are so glad to have you with us. We're starting a 3-part series that we're calling The Intentionals.
Dun, 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 dun. That's my most intentional song today.
It's kind of a playoff of The Incredibles. Jonathan loves all the Disney Pixar.
He does.
And so we've come quite proficient with every one of those movies.
We have.
So, we're kind of doing a playoff of that. What are the intentional things that you need to have as a part of your marriage to be successful?
To have a superhero marriage, if you will. You got to be intentional. And what are some of those things?
So there are 3 things that we're going to focus on. And you've probably heard these before. So it's not always new information. It's about execution. How are you doing with actually following through on it? And I'll just straight out of the gate. Some of these I really struggle with. And I'm not going to act like we've got this all together. We are still figuring this out.
All right, work in progress.
You got that right. You got that right. But these are the things that we aspire to, and we want to encourage you to do that as well.
They work. I mean, they are proven.
Yeah, they've been part of our journey at times, but we just haven't been.
We've seen other people implement them sometimes better than we have, and we've been like, okay, that thing they do.
That's right. As a matter of fact, we'll give them credit tonight when we're going through some of this. So maybe you've heard this before, that you need to connect daily, you need to date weekly, and you need to retreat monthly. And we believe those things to be true. So we're going to do a 3-part series on those, the intentionals. I can tell you right now, if you are not intentional, they will not happen.
Absolutely. Let me read the definition. Yeah. Intentional is an adjective. It means performed with awareness, done deliberately and consciously or on purpose.
You bet.
If you let life happen to you, if you let your marriage happen to you, you probably won't be thrilled with the results.
Yeah.
But if you do things with intentionality, if you do things on purpose, it's amazing the different results that you get.
Yeah. So tonight we're going to talk about connecting daily.
Connect daily.
So when you start talking about connecting daily, what are some of the first things that come to mind? Get us started.
Talk.
Yeah.
Now, many of the women in our audience are like, yeah, talk. Some of the guys are like, oh my God, I've talked all day at work. I don't want to use any more words. I've used all my words. This isn't.
And by the way, that may be a flip, because I know some of you ladies,
that was a bit stereotypical,
some of you ladies, you're working outside the home, and you got the same thing going on. So I want to make sure that you know that you're part of this conversation too.
And I think it's important that we say we're not talking about quantity. We're really more talking about quality. Quantity is good.
Well,
but I think what I'm saying is we've talked about how we want to be intentional about what we're talking about each day.
Let me take it a step further, because we've learned this one. How do you spell love? Time. And how do you get quality time? Quality time only comes from quantity time.
Exactly.
So you never know when the quality is going to happen.
Right.
So this is why it's important that you be intentional about it. Even when you don't feel like it, you don't feel like it's going to be a magic moment. It may be.
Right.
But you just kind of honor the process with that. So you were talking about sharing both facts and feelings. What were the events of the day? We want to stay away from it just being a
book report.
A calendar, connection.
Right.
But so share what are not only the things that happen, but some of the emotions behind that. Guys, again, I'm projecting myself onto you. Okay, some of you ladies may relate to this more than not, but I oftentimes don't want to go there. Right. I just want to sit in the chair and veg out, watching TV or doing whatever it is that I'm doing. Fantasy football is going on right now, so making your trades, doing whatever it is, college football, watching the boards, whatever it is you're doing. You need to connect on both of those levels, both the facts and the feelings. So what does that look like?
Well, I think a lot of times the feelings come out as you're doing the facts, and as you're saying, I had this happen, I had this encounter with this person, and so I think a lot of times you'll talk about your feelings then. How is that kind of how it does for you?
I guess some of the first things, and this has been interesting because some of this has been flipped on us. So, like, for example, today I worked from home. Melodie was away. So, in the past, I always wanted to try, and this was especially when our kids were younger, I wanted to try and make sure that while I'm in the car, I'm preparing myself.
For battle.
No, not that, not in a bad way, but to be intentional, so that when I walk in the door,
that's so sweet.
I can be intentional both with you and with the kids. Can I make a suggestion, guys, gals, whomever it is that gets home last? The first person you greet, let it be your spouse.
Aww, that's so sweet. You didn't really kiss me.
No, I didn't.
I know.
Let it be your spouse.
Yeah, and I've shared with you before. I've shared with him before that recently, in the last few years, I realized that I was in kind of a huff when he would get home, and that's natural. That's normal. I would be cooking dinner. I would be in the middle of the throes. I wouldn't even make eye contact with him, and I felt really sad about that. And I feel like the Spirit of God kind of touched my attention and said, hey, look at him when he comes home. So I kind of made it a personal thing that every day when he comes home, my face lights up when I see him. I make eye contact, my face. We all want that. When you walk in the door, you want somebody to say, like that, you know? And so I think that's something that we can do for each other, is to look like, oh, man, I'm so glad to see you.
So find a way, carve out, be intentional. Hey, I'm not saying this is going to be a 15-minute, she's going to have, the pipe and slippers when you come in the door. Okay, that's not real. What is real is you can take 30 seconds just to do a check-in, to say, hey, how was your day? And it may be one of those things of, it was a doozy, we need to talk later. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So then you got to circle back to that. We talk about this sometimes. Sometimes there's the face-to-face communication, and sometimes there's the shoulder-to-shoulder communication. And for some reason, and I'm speaking for me right now, and I think a lot of other guys can relate to this, we do better with the shoulder-to-shoulder sometimes than we do with the face-to-face. So one of the things that we picked up on, thank you, Wade and Janet. Wade and Janet are great friends of ours, and Wade shared with me something that he and Janet do, and they have a notebook. This is our notebook. And what they do is they write notes to each other. And with those notes, they'll write the note, and then they'll leave it on the bedside table on their partner's side of the bed. And then that means it's the partner's turn as well. Now, here's what makes this really cool. There's no pressure. There's no shame. There's no schedule. The key is
I love that.
So you leave the notebook there with the note, and you're not really making a big deal about it. But the intention of this is it gives you a safe place to kind of just give a peek behind the curtain. It's a really great way to connect daily. Now, I'd like to tell you that I'm more consistent with that than I am, but I'm wanting to get better. So there's one of these things you don't say, well, you haven't written in the book lately. It doesn't. That's against the rules. That's off the table. You can't do that. It's a great way, though, to connect daily. Sometimes it's just as simple, hey, today was crazy. I love you. I think you're special. You look really beautiful going out the door to work today. Whatever it is that's true and on your heart. And you can share that, and you can do it in a safe space.
I love that.
Yeah. So, facts and feelings. Another one is to pray together. Can I tell you, this has been a real challenge for me, our entire marriage. And I don't know that I can fully put a finger on why. I am far more, if you're an Enneagram person, I'm an 8. So I'm about, let's be about it instead of talk about it. So maybe that's part of it, part of my personality, part of my temperament. Another thing is it just feels weird.
thought you were gonna say intimate, and you didn't. You said
it feels weird. It does. And again, I'm not saying that in a proud way. Understand something. By the way, I believe in prayer. I
know
pray.
You do. I know.
I
know you do.
I catch myself constantly praying throughout the day. But there's something about, okay, Melody, we need to pray together. It just is weird. But can I tell you, it is intimate. Maybe that's another part of it. It is a into me you see that is far more revealing, and I feel exposed more than any other way. All that said, Tom and Polly Wood, we love you. Thank you for this. Pray together. You don't even have to like each other when you do it, but you do need to pray together. And so,
well, and you mentioned the shoulder-to-shoulder thing. I think our most successful prayer times have been right when we're getting ready to go to sleep at night. We're shoulder to shoulder a lot of times, and the lights are out. It's dark, so it's a little less inhibiting.
If I can just stay awake, that's the problem.
And sometimes I'll say, "Would you just pray with me? Would you just pray over me?" And you do. But what's so interesting to me is that when you get vulnerable like that, and you say, and I hear you being vulnerable with God, and I hear you saying, "God, I don't have the answers to this one. I don't know this one." That doesn't cause me to doubt you. That causes me to trust you.
This is not a you issue. And I mean that. This is not, we're having a moment. This isn't a you problem. It's not that you make me feel uncomfortable. It's totally me.
Right.
Hey, it wasn't overly modeled in the home that I grew up in. Loved my mom and dad, wonderful people.
Sure, and they were people of prayer, but
yeah,
not together
well, they were,
as much, maybe.
Not that I saw.
Right.
And that's not to say that they weren't.
Right.
We prayed before the meals.
Right.
You know? So I can just tell you, though, this is a game changer. The times that we've done it, it centers our relationship. So I'll also say this. It's really, really difficult to, if you've been following our other podcast on forgiveness, and we talk about seeing someone as a person versus an object, it's very difficult to objectify your spouse when you're praying with them. So I really encourage you to go there.
That's a good point. So we've talked about talking daily. We've talked about feelings and facts. We've talked about praying together, and that's really talking to God together. And then another way, I love this way, and I would say that Dan is really quick to do this. Dan will send me a text, or he'll call me, or before I leave in the morning, you know what he says to me sometimes? He'll say, "How can I serve you today?" Did you hear that? How can I serve you today? First of all, blesses me to no end. He really means it. He's not just saying it to get bonus points. I mean, bonus points are nice, don't get me wrong. But he's saying, how can I serve you today? And so one of the things that does for me is it's kind of a gut check for me where I'm like, what are those things that are weighing heavy on my mind or on my shoulders? What could he do to take one thing off of me? That one thing may change the trajectory of my day. Really, even just asking me changes the trajectory of my day. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want us to do for each other. How can I serve you today?
Yeah, one that I know that I've tried to do intentionally, and this was more so when Melody was at home, I was away at work, I'm coming home. I would try to call as I'm on my way, and one of the things I would ask is, when I get home, is there anything that would be really helpful? Is there something that would be helpful for me to pick up on the way home? Is there something I need to know as I'm walking in the door? If you've had teenage daughters, you know what I'm talking about. It's just nice to have a heads up, right? But, you know, hey, Dan, there have been times, Dan, today's been a very difficult day for X, Y, and Z. Okay, it's already on my radar, right? So it gives me that time, like I'm talking as I'm driving, to decompress and to prepare myself so that I can be a good priest for my family. That's really what it comes down to.
So good.
Last intentional for tonight, as it relates to how to connect on a daily basis. Touch your spouse. Didn't know you were a step ahead.
I knew it was coming.
This isn't just talking about sex, though sexual touch is wonderful. But that's not what we're talking about. If you get into love languages, Gary Smalley's book, 5 Love Languages, I think is fantastic.
It's actually Gary Chapman.
Oh, what did I
that's
say?
okay. Smalley.
I'm sorry. Gary Smalley's awesome too.
He is.
Bless him.
He really is.
He just recently passed. But 5 love languages, my primary love language is physical touch. Secondly is acts of service. Those are not melodies. So when you understand that physical touch is a big deal, it's not just sexual touch, it's any touch.
Right.
So something Melodie has had to try to coach herself toward is intentionally touching me. Just when she walks by, she touches me. She tries to, at least. That comes intuitively for me, right?
It very much does.
To reach out and to touch. But touch your spouse. And then when the time is right, and I'll even go so far as to say connecting daily. Hey, if you've got to schedule sex, do so. It's an important part of connecting as a spouse, as a married couple. We're not going to go get all, inappropriate here, so don't start reaching for the dial if your kids are in the car.
One of the things we do too is we do some more personal coaching, and when we do personal coaching, we can talk about things that are more like that, about things that have actually helped
that are more intimate.
us.
Sure.
When we talked about what are realistic expectations and what's realistic between the couple, and those are things we would do more personally.
It's kind of like Kevin Lehman in his book.
Starts in the kitchen.
Sex starts in the kitchen, right? So that is a beautiful way to look at it. So hey guys, if you are like, hey, I wish that would happen more often. Maybe if you'll do these other touch points, it's amazing what might happen. Oh, by the way, and I'll give this as an aside. When I brought that out as something we're going to do, and I gave that to Melodie, she cried. It was so moving for her. She literally cried. So connecting on a daily basis. Listen, it's hard. Those of you who have small children out there.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I'm thrilled for you. I'm thrilled for you.
But it's hard. Yeah.
Been there.
It's really difficult. You have to be even more intentional because your spouse is not clairvoyant. They don't know what you're thinking. You have to be intentional. You have to ask. You have to engage. And if you're not intentional, it's just not going to happen.
You're right.
So, what's the homework?
What is the homework?
Here's what I'm going to suggest for your homework. This is it right here. Get a notebook. Again, I spent a total $1 on this at Dollar Tree. Get a notebook and just begin. Listen, it doesn't need to be a dissertation or War and Peace. It can be a very short note. But make sure it's facts and feelings, okay?
I love it.
No, you're not going to read none of that.
I want you to read some of it out loud.
No, you're not.
It's so
no, you're
good.
not. You're not going to do that. That's another one of the rules. This is personal and private. This is not to be consumed by outside individuals.
I wouldn't do that to you.
So,
but you did lay the groundwork.
This is your homework. Get your notebook. It's really easy.
I'm telling you, y'all, game changer, cheap, awesome.
And, okay, but don't forget, no shame, no guilt. You're not going to tell your spouse, that's not the way this works. One of the things I appreciate that Melodie has done, there were some times that notebook sat on my side of the bed way too long. She picked it up. She wrote me another note. And she left it on. By the way, if you've written a note, leave it on the pillow. Don't put it beside the bed. Leave it on the pillow. So that's your homework. Listen, we are so glad to have you part of our Together for Good family.
Are.
Subscribe on the different podcast outlets. Take a look at it on YouTube. Pass the word. We just want to be an encouragement to everyone that could use some encouragement in their marriage journey.
Absolutely.
How they could be together
that
for
all
good.
of us, folks.
You bet. And so until next time, bless you.
We are together for good.
Yeah.
So this week's show may be over, but the work has just begun. Be sure to check out the great resources and references mentioned in today's show in the show notes at wearetogetherforgood.com/podcast. It is also super easy to subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode. Hey, if this podcast has been an encouragement to you in your marriage and life journey, please let the people in your world know. Help us spread the word about the Together for Good adventure by following us on our Facebook and Instagram pages. This would go a long way to help get the word out. Don't forget to check out our website, wearetogetherforgood.com, for free resources, archived podcast episodes, and other ways you can experience a life and marriage that is together for good.